Hello, cats and kittens, felines and felidae, humans and variant humans, and every race, class, and subclass. Welcome to another episode of Brittany the RPG Cat. I'm here, but I seem to have lost my ability to move my lips. Let me see if I can fix that with a refresh or something like that. No, well, probably not. Oh, maybe... Is that on? No, probably. Oh, I think I just changed the settings on that, and that's what the issue is. Let's see. How do I go about fixing this one? Reselect the microphone and properties, probably. All right. No, that's not the technique. No, not that one either. Preferences, volume detect, live input, audio hardware. Yeah. Okay. Click OK on that. Nope, it's not working. Ah, well. I'm probably just going to have to refresh the avatar. Hold on a second, I'll be right back. Man, what a way to start a stream. Alright, well. So everybody, yeah, I am still here. I'm just trying to make this adjustment. Oh, Danny boy, the lights are calling. If I start singing folk songs, I should probably sing folk songs that I actually know. Just saying. Future note, future reference. That other program that opened up, doing me a heckin' worry there. Okay, I'm now no longer communicating to you telepathically. Sorry about all the people that might have had an issue with that. So anyways, welcome to another episode of Brittany the RPG Cat. Hello, cats and kittens, felines and felidae, humans and variant humans, and every race, class, and subclass. So tonight we are doing another tabletop lore stream. We are going to be reading some The Light of Xaryxis, which is the first adventure book in the new Spelljammer set for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. And, so it is a little bit controversial in tabletop circles to have a read of a actual DM book, because then there's material in that that's going to be spoilers. Sonar AF says, good day. Yeah, very good day. I get to be with you, and I get to talk about tabletop content. That's a very good day. I think it's a very good day. So, yeah, it's a bit controversial to go through a Dungeon Master's book, but, I'm probably going to do it in a way where we're only going to be talking about lore. We are not going to be talking about any DM instructions. We're not going to go in-depth to any dungeons. Maybe we'll highlight a few of the unique monsters in the book, but other than that... my volume is down. Yeah. Alright. Let me spring that back up there. Is that any better? So, yeah, we're going to look through this guidebook, and then after that, we are going to... before we get into all of that with the Light of Xaryxis book, we're going to watch some YouTube. And so, when I had first started streaming, I went through YouTube, and I did a couple of full YouTube shows. And in those shows, I just kind of showed a few, 2 or 3 videos that defined what Spelljammer is. And since we're talking about it tonight, I did want to take some time or fill some time, whichever way you want to look at it, and watch some of these videos again so that we can once again reorient ourselves with all the Spelljammer material that we had discussed in previous episodes. So let's go ahead and let's start the first video. This one comes from Jorfdan. This is Spelljammer and Wild Space. And so, an introduction to, once again, to space travel and everybody's favorite role-playing game. Okay.
Wild Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Spelljammer Galleon. Its 5-year mission to...
Let me stop because I can see that there's a little bit of an issue with the closed captioning. I'm going to have to fix that. So, yeah, this is shifted way down. Okay, that should take care of it. Okay, let's start the video again.
Wild Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Spelljammer Galleon. Its 5-year mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life.
Oop, one more error. I should actually pause my music too before I play a video. Okay, everything is under control now.
Wild Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Spelljammer
First time doing
Galleon.
these things.
Its 5-year mission to explore
First person to
strange
admit
new
that,
worlds,
yeah,
to seek out new life
I'm not
and
infallible.
civilizations, to boldly go where no halfling has gone before.
Spelljammer. Well, you know, one
But
thing
first,
that I
this
miss
video
about
is
5e
sponsored by
is, you know,
1985
back in the
Games
day,
and
people
their
used to
Kickstarter,
actually
The
make some
Deck
pretty
of
awesome
Stories.
looking
The Deck of
logos
Stories
for
is a
Dungeons &
useful
Dragons
tool
books.
to help you create stories and
That
adventures
has
for
fallen
your tabletop
off a
games.
little bit.
Each card is filled with an idea or story hook that can be weaved together with other cards. Pull some random cards from the deck and place them down, linking the story hooks to start crafting your own adventure. The Kickstarter has funded well over its goal, and 1985
Talking
Games
about
are offering
cards,
2 story decks plus
And
NPC
you know,
cards to put
I don't
pre-generated
want to be
characters
too
into your
disparaging
campaign.
about cards
It's
because
really
I use
fun
them all
art
the
and a great
time
way to
when I'm
build
the
a
dungeon
one-shot
master.
or a full campaign. Check out their Kickstarter today using the link below, and thanks again, 1985 Games. Hello everybody, Jordan here, the PH is silent.
Hello everybody,
and this video
Jordan
is
here.
A
Maybe he
continuation
just
of a
said Jordan, I
Spelljammer
don't
video
know.
series. This particular video is part 2. If you want to watch part 1, it will help out with the
This
overall
particular video is
idea
part
of the
2. If you want to
D&D
watch part
Spelljammer
1, it'll help
campaign
out with the
setting.
overall
But,
idea
hey,
with the
you're smart.
campaign
You can
setting.
figure it out.
But if
Who am
you're
I to tell
smart,
you what
can
to do?
figure
If
out
you're
who I am,
curious,
tell you
there
what to
is
do
a
if
link
you're
in the
curious.
description
Okay,
and the
okay,
top
okay,
right
okay.
corner of the screen. It'll take you
I've
to
got
a
it.
Spelljammer playlist. In this video, I'm going to discuss the Spelljammer
Alright.
ships, their movement, ratings, and control. Or in other words, how do you pilot this thing? Spelljammer is a D&D fantasy space setting. It has unique fantasy rules involving gravity, air, and the nature of the universe. You can play any character race. Unique races are dependent on their homeworld being accessible. So if you're from the Forgotten Realms and want to play a dwarf, you can. Your dwarf would have all their Faerunian characteristics, just not space travel. That will come later. All races are allowed in Spelljammer, but
You
if
know,
you wanted to be a race or
you
class
gotta
from a
just
different setting,
wade
like changeling or shifter,
a little bit
you have to
into
talk to your
the
DM about
space
incorporating
travel
the world
pool.
of Eberron into your Spelljammer campaign. Starting a new Spelljammer game, there's always the fun question of how did you get here? However, you could be native to spelljamming if you wish, a non-Faerunian dwarf that flies the cosmos. You could also have some fun building unique backgrounds for the characters of Spelljammer. When Spelljammer came out, there was one race
Orphan
that was
or
considered
Amnesia.
spaceborn, and
Very
that
popular
was
choices.
the Lizardmen. They were considered savages on most worlds, and in space, they are strong and a frightening group to behold. Mentioned in my last video, clerics have some potential problems with recharging their spells. Their deity might not have influence in the crystal sphere where they are currently inhabiting. If you're native to Spelljammer, your cleric could follow one of the space civilization faiths, which would only cut you off momentarily while in the phlogiston. Those faiths
I am
are the
Galactus. I am
Polygots,
apparently
the
a
Path
choice
and
of
the Way,
God in
Ta, the Traveler's
Spelljammer.
God, and various planar churches. You'll find followers and temples anywhere there are Spelljammer space civilizations. Now, astral projection, ethereal spells, portable holes, and extra-dimensional spaces all work normally in wild space, but they do not work in the phlogiston. Phlogiston is cut off from the planes. It might truly be the plane between planes. It seemingly connects all the crystal spheres, but not the planes. You'll never find your way to limbo from the phlogiston. If you open a bag of holding it in the phlogiston, it will just not function. It behaves as a normal bag. Its contents empty. But don't worry, everything does return once you are back in wild space. Magical fire in wild space does work, but regular fire does not due to the lack of oxygen. Thus, you are able to cast a fireball or use produce flame, but if there is no air around you, the fireball will quickly disappear after doing damage, and it will not set other flammable things ablaze. Spelljammers are
Yeah, so you don't get the fireball in the shop when you're in the middle of wild
the act
space.
of
That's the
spelljamming
lesson
is
to learn from that.
magical energy into motion for ships. In order for spelljammers to function, it requires a spelljammer helm, most often just called a helm. The helm looks like a great chair, a captain's chair almost. Any creature with spell slots can turn magical energy into movement for the ship. There are many different types of
I am in
helms,
my own
as
chair
varied
right
as the
now,
weapons and
traversing
other
wild
equipment you
space.
own. Helms can be upgraded, traded, or altered, and part of the fun of Spelljammer is upgrading your ship, outfitting it with new weapons or equipment to enhance speed, and a strong advantage would be to upgrade your helm.
Except the
which would allow
ships
you
don't
more
look like
movement for
this. This
less
is just
magical
stock art.
cost. Valuable in space fights. A major helm converts magical ability to energy at a 1/2 level rate, fractions rounded up. This provides a ship rating known as SR, which stands for ship rating. SR equals your level divided by 2 rounded up. A first or second level wizard provides a ship rating of 1, while a 20th level wizard provides a ship rating of 10. A minor helm converts magical ability to energy at a rate of 1/3 levels. So in this case, SR equals level divided by 3 rounded up. So a first level, second level, and third level wizard all equal an SR of 1, but a 20th level wizard equals an SR of 7. Because your helm is the direct way you control your ship, many ships have minor helms as backups. If the major helm gets damaged or destroyed, you aren't adrift in wild space.
Just, you know,
Someone
a small
can hop
folding
on the
metal
minor
chair,
helm to hopefully get you out of danger.
just right behind
Ships have
the
their
big
own
one.
stat block in Spelljammer, and rightfully so, as your Spelljammer ship will most often become a character in your game. The main stats are tonnage, ship rating, maneuverability class, hull points, power types, standard armament, cargo space, and armor rating.
So this
There's
is the
also
great-grandfather
keel
of the
length and beam width, which is the
Mayfly
length
ship
and width
that
of
we
the
had
ship
actually
measured
seen
at
in the
its
book
longest
before.
and widest points. This is measured in feet and lets you know if your Spelljammer will be able to hide in that crater, which is 100%.
Oh, look, it's Star
A
Wars.
ship's size is defined by tonnage, or T for short, but it's not weight, rather the amount of displacement the ship takes up. The tonnage is a reflection of how much air a ship surrounds itself with, the required crew capacity, and the max crew capacity. 1 ton is arbitrarily set to equal 100 cubic yards, so you can get an idea of how large your Spelljammer is.
Wow,
Ships
that
all
is
have
heavy.
2 numbers when it comes to crew.
And I
One
think
is
some
the
of these
minimum
still
number
float on
of
water
individuals needed to
afterwards.
run the ship under normal circumstances, and the second is the max number of individuals the ship can carry without overloading its atmosphere bubble. This is shown as a fraction. So next to ships, you'll see 1035. 10 is the minimum crew, and any more than 35 people, you're going to have air problems. Mentioned earlier, the ship rating, or SR, defines the ship's speed and power, and a little bit of maneuverability. The higher the SR number, the faster the ship. An SR
Higher,
is
more
directly
better.
affected by the level of a spellcaster piloting at the helm. So let's take 2 identical ships, but the wizards piloting them are at different level ranges. The higher level wizard's
Oh, wow,
Spelljammer
you're
will be
going to
faster
really
than
diss
you.
on my man Presto like
Maneuverability
that.
class, or MC, of your ship is pretty self-explanatory. How well can you tactically move through space?
See, at this point, I
This
don't
is a
even know if
factor
I've
of
made these
size,
jokes before. The
propulsion,
last time
and
I
hull
actually did the
design. Some of
YouTube
faster
stream,
ships
but, you
are
know, it's
graceful
well in the
designs
past
made
by
by
now, so...
elves, and some of the slowest ships were sea vessels converted into Spelljammers. The rating is A to F, with A being the most valuable, and F means the ship is below the base standards. Hull points, or HP, is the health of your ship. It's the number that represents the damage your ship has taken. Hull points are easy because they
Hull
start out
points,
equal to
not
your tonnage.
bow
A
points.
30-ton
Sometimes
ship has
people
30
have said
HP.
bow points.
There are options
At least
for
I think
Spelljammer ships that add
how
more
some
armor
people
or
have
other
said bow
materials
points.
that
That's
might
probably the
increase your
appropriate
ship's
way to put it.
HP but lower its maneuverability. Power type is the type of helm or engine, the force that propels your ship. For most, it's a spelljamming helm that converts magic into propulsion, but for mind flayers, they have a special helm that lets them use psionic energy, and beholders power their ship with a mutated version of themselves called an orbis. Dwarves have a device called a forge, and you can have multiple power types on your ship, but they don't run at the same time. The online run is the primary power source.
Amazing art. I didn't see anything like this in the 5e manual.
If you run out of fuel, you are adrift.
People do have some creative ideas when it comes to spaceships, though.
Cargo space is how much cargo you can carry, and each ton reflects 50 cubic yards of space that can be used, but only by non-living, non-breathing cargo. A 40-ton frigate could carry 20 tons of cargo. And finally, armor rating is the armor class of your ship. It operates just like armor class.
See, that's the easiest way in order to calculate how much a character can hold. And, you know, according to him, you know, you treat the ship like a character.
Of construction and maneuverability make up armor
so he can carry half of his total weight. That sounds fair.
Poor AR, while heavy-built large ships have a high AR. So, with all that, you're now ready to buy a Spelljammer. Well, the currency in Spelljammer
Greetings, good feline. Hello, go watch freaking One Piece.
There are a lot of ships to choose
that
from.
does remind me, you know, at some point I'm really going to have to start watching freaking One Piece.
Or maybe you'll fall in love with your ship and augment it to increase its maneuverability or armor rating. Some of my favorite Spelljammer ships are the Squid Ship, the Nyogi Death Spider, and the Mosquito. Subscribe for the next Spelljammer video. I'm going to talk about helms a
Let's
bit more
go and terrorize the space highways. Yay!
Showcase a simple combat to put the rules into perspective. More questions to ask though. What about landing on planets? What adventures were written for Spelljammer? How easy is it to convert?
I recommend the manga for better pacing. Yeah, that's probably a better idea.
The lights on. Check out my channel for further.
So I remember back in the old days that I used to. Back in the old days, I used to be a big fan of Ranma 1/2 by Rumiko Takahashi, and I had the option of going into mail order. Mail order took maybe about 6 weeks at the time, and probably cost you like an extra $15 in shipping. And so in those days, in the older days, I would have a choice between getting a VHS tape, which probably only had 2 episodes in it, or I would get myself a volume of the manga in a graphic novel form. And so that's how I mostly took up getting the manga in mail order. And so this was before everything. This was before there were Barnes & Noble booksellers that just had a manga shelf. So I'm definitely with you when it comes to reading manga over watching anime. So let's see here. Let's go on to this Spelljammer ship combat video. Alright. Oh, we are really selling the Star Wars metaphors at this point. Okay. I mean, they took the time in order to use the stock music because this is YouTube, and they would get sued if they actually used the theme song.
If you're interested in the fantasy lore and history of these worlds, I'd love to have you subscribe. This video, I'll be discussing the Spelljammer campaign setting, and specifically, we're going to talk about ship combat in space. This is actually the third in a video series on Spelljammer, so if you'd like to be taken to the beginning, there's a link to the playlist in the top right corner or in the description below. Now,
so this was the first video. We watched the second video first.
But it is also the name for traveling through fantasy space and the name for the vehicles used. So you can spelljam your Spelljammer in Spelljammer. In the last video, I went over the ship statistics, and my goal in this one is to conduct a ship combat training exercise. Let's put some Spelljammers into combat and see what they can do. I'll be referencing the Adventures in Space box set and a supplement for Spelljammer called The War Captain's Companion. You can find links to both of them in the description below. Ships have different types of movement, long range, and tactical. Just like playable characters' movement is different.
I love the anime, but the manga is way better. The way I do it these days is read the manga,
a combat encounter.
Then watch the fights whenever they get animated.
So it does have
probably a good policy.
A flying ship in the Spelljammer universe moves 500
yards. That's definitely the
per
advantage
round
that anime
for every
has over
point
manga.
Of its ship's rating. The ship's rating, or SR, is a combination of the ship's speed and power, and is dependent on the individual piloting the ship. It can vary, but roughly translates to about 17 miles per hour or 400 miles per day. This is the number written in the original
They don't
AD&D
bother
rules,
making
and it
the
doesn't seem
miles
fast enough when
technically
traveling
longer
the
than the
cosmos.
ones that
So
you would do on
the
land.
catch is, if your ship is in wild space and you're going in a straight line, then all Spelljammer ships can reach a velocity of 4 million miles per hour. This is the key. It doesn't matter the class or the ship rating of your Spelljammer, all ships traveling in a straight line can achieve this speed, traveling about
See, we're not even
100
bothering
million
with
miles
warp
in a
in this
single day.
system.
To put it into perspective, if a Spelljammer left our real life Earth, it would take a single day to go from the Earth to the Sun. It would take 36 days to reach Pluto. You'll keep this speed until you encounter an object with a gravity well larger than 10 tons, in which your Spelljammer speed drops back to normal, the 500 yards per SR, and this creates a series of random encounters. The DM can have you drop out of hyperspace, for lack of a better word, for a planet or asteroid or another ship.
Well, meaning
To
that
me,
you're
it
not
has a
traveling
JRPG
using the
feel
inertia of your
flying
own
your
ship
airship
anymore.
and running into Doomgaze. You have to slow down, make a decision to investigate or keep flying, and sometimes this is a battle where you don't have a choice, but it could also be a planet where you can land and resupply. So let's say you found a planet. You can dip down briefly to get a fresh supply of air for your Spelljammer ship, or you can try and land on the planet and investigate. Ships capable of landing on water can
You
land
hate it when
on
you run low
water.
on
A
gas.
ship that
Imagine
has
if you
landing
were
gear
running
can
low
set down
on
on a hard
air.
surface, and any ship can crash into a planet's ocean, but taking off again can be difficult. To take off and land, the Spelljammer pilot and helm have to overcome or align with the gravity well of the object you're interacting with. This takes 1d8 rounds, around
Ordinarily
6
called
seconds, and this is
attunement,
augmented
which
by the
is,
size of the gravity well,
anything
or
a magic
planet in this
user.
example. It will
Anyone
always
who's
be
playing a magic
1d8
user already
rounds,
basically
followed
knows
by
what
extra
attunement is.
turns to fully leave the planet's gravity well. Turns take 10 minutes in AD&D. A size class A planet, which is the smallest, will take 1 turn, but a size class J takes 96 turns, or 16
Hoff says
hours
lurk
to
mode
fully
activate.
get out of
You
the
know, I'm not
gravity
sure
well
I
and
actually
allow for
have
that
a
fast, straight line speed.
alert
Weather
mode,
also
but
affects
at
your ability
any
to
rate,
land
thank you
and
very
take
much for
off.
tuning
There is
in,
a
Hoff.
fun 2d6 chart to roll on and see what is
Let me
the
pause
weather
the
of
video for a
planet.
second. Let me give a shout out to Hoff's channel. So Hoff is the president of Great Media Games, which is the TCG company that I frequently plug at the start of the stream. So let's see. GMG, let me put that there. There we go. Well, watch a clip. Presumably a much older clip. Last playing Gundam Evolution. That's been really, really, really popular. This just looks like an opening. Yeah, so at some point somebody just clipped the attract mode to Hoff's channel. Should we do it again? No, probably not. Let's just keep watching.
With strong winds or a full storm, the time is increased by a factor of 2 or 4. When using these numbers, it really only comes up if you're running from something or trying to catch something, probably. It's basically a tool for the DM to use when there is a time crunch, and that's why they're in the game. I'm sure most DMs would be fine hand-waving most of the time and just allowing you to land. But let's talk about ship-to-ship
Parrish
combat.
thought that the
Movement and
DMs
combat
are just
handled
kind
in a
of making up the
two-dimensional
way a
format,
ship moves
despite
through outer
space
space.
being in 3 dimensions. The authors were being friendly, and it was designed this way for simplicity. Trying to apply 3D rules would slow down the game, and they felt that it would not add any benefit to the tactics. I mean, I get it, but it still kind of makes me sad. I grew up playing Homeworld, and every sci-fi fan understands that the enemy gate is down. Thumbs up if you understand that too.
I actually
You'll roll
don't
initiative
understand
like
that.
normal D&D combat rules and attack when it's your turn, followed by the enemy and so forth. Combat is played out on a hex grid, and finally you can flip over your dungeon map.
So
Each
this is where we
Spelljammer ship
actually
has a
officially
front
use the
and a
hex
rear
grid, ladies and
point.
gentlemen, and
SR
others.
is the direct amount your ship can move. A Spelljammer ship with an SR of 3 can move 1 space or change its facing direction 3 times per turn. That could be 3 hexes in a straight line, or 2 hexes and a turn. A ship can always change its facing direction by 1 hex at the end of its movement.
I don't think I'm old
for
enough to
free.
understand that.
So when you move 3 hexes in a straight line,
Well, simply
if you
put,
wish,
that
at the end of your
ordinarily
movement,
you
can
would
rotate
use a
your ship
grid with
one side.
squares if
The
you're just kind
maneuverability
of
class of your ship
traveling
determines
on
when
land.
they can change direction during their movement. And
So you
this
don't have to
reflects
think
inertia,
about
I think, and allows for
turning
the
something like
maneuverability
45
class
degrees
upgrades
when
to
you're
mean
moving from
something in
one
combat. F
section of a
ships
map
can't
to
change
another,
direction
unless
until
you're
they
doing
move
very
into a
complex
hex.
movement, like
D and
with
E
a
ships
vessel.
can't change orientation
And
by more
specifically
than one
these
side
vessels that
per
are out in
hex
outer
in a single
space.
turn. This causes you and your ship to bank with wide turns. B and C can change up to 2 hex sides in a single hex, and A ships can change direction at will, even 180 degrees backwards. An A-class ship doesn't even spend SR when changing direction. I'm gonna play out a small combat here between 2 ships. I am not an expert at 2nd edition AD&D rules, but we'll just walk through it and hopefully see how easy it would be to convert to other editions. I've got 2 ships,
easy.
a galleon and a squid ship. AC is reversed in 2nd edition, so lower is better. The armor rating of the galleon is 7, and the armor of the squid ship is 5. To keep things simple, each ship has a level 6 wizard and a major helm. This puts each ship's rating at 3, thus they have a movement of 3. However, the galleon has a maneuverability class of E, which is bad, and the squid ship has a maneuverability class of D, which is better. We roll initiative, and the galleon goes first. It can move and attack.
I wonder if that means that,
light catapult and
it
2
would get
medium
just
ballista.
a +1
In
when
order
it comes
to change
its
direction,
advantage.
the galleon has to use one of its movement to
That's
go
a
forward.
question I'm going to
because
have
of
to
its
ask.
E-class in
Yeah, I'm
maneuverability.
going to have to go back
The
to the
galleon
older
moves
guide
forward,
in order to double check
then
that
turns,
in 5e.
and then moves again,
If
using
that rule
its
still
full
applies in
movement
5e.
or SR of 3. The range of its light catapult is 5, which the enemy ship is in range. You can select to attack either the crew or the ship itself. Now the medium ballista have a range of 4, so our ship is just out of range. Thus, this turn, the galleon will attack with just the light catapult. THAC0 of our ship is 14, and THAC0 means to hit AC 0. So in order to hit AC 0, we need to roll a 14 through a 20. Now armor class of 0 is really good because lower is better, but our squid
They really
ship
wanted
has
you
a
to
worse
roll
AC
high when
of
it
5.
came to
We then
Advanced
subtract
Dungeons and
5
Dragons.
from our THAC0 of 14 to get a hit range of 9 to 20. Our galleon rolled a 15 and he hits. We do 1d2 hull points of damage. We flip a coin
1d2,
and get a
yeah.
2. Our squid ship is now 43 out of 45 hull points. Time
could
for the
take a
next turn.
while.
The squid ship turns, moving 3 forward towards our galleon and attacks with the heavy catapult and 2 medium ballista. Heavy catapult is a range of 3, has a THAC0 of 18, and crits on an 18, 19, or 20. THAC0 18 minus galleon armor rating 7 is a hit range of 11 to 20. We roll
Bigger
a 12,
ship, bigger
just
guns.
hitting, and we do 2d4 points of hull damage. Our medium ballista also fires, and we'll say they both hit, doing 1d3 hull points of damage. The total damage of our attack is 12 hull points. The galleon is at 28 out of 40 hull points. For later editions of D&D, we could easily say the ship has an AC of 16, and your weapon has a
there
plus
you
6
are.
to hit.
Yeah.
So you roll a 12 plus 6 equals 18. Higher
12 plus
than
6
its AC, and you
equals
hit for
18.
2d4
Okay, yeah,
damage.
that's the way that
If
you
I got my
would
THAC0 wrong, I
do it
apologize.
if you weren't
and if you're
playing
confused, don't worry.
your
By the end of this
grandpa's,
series on Spelljammer,
with
I
your
hope to
grandpa's
create
books.
some simple 5e rules that anyone can use. Conversely, you could use
We're
some of the
hoping
ship
for
rules
simple
in
5e
either Ghosts of
rules, which
Saltmarsh
were,
for
you know,
D&D 5e or
eventually
Pathfinder,
released
and change
in
them up as needed.
the books
Knowing
that we
he's
have been
outmatched, the
reading on the
galleon will
stream.
rush up to the squid ship. Ships can share the same hex, but when they are touching like that, short-range combat can occur, where characters can attack the crew from the deck of their ship. Also, grappling and boarding of the ship can happen, in which case you would just break out into regular combat just on the deck of the ship, with perhaps some environmental hazards from the combat. There is a critical hit
Prepare
chart
to
for
be
when
boarded.
long-range weapons roll a natural
My favorite
20.
part
Instead
of any
double
kind
the
of ship
dice,
battle
you roll on a
in,
separate table
Dungeons
that
and Dragons.
explains what happens. This could be
In
anything
Dungeons,
from
I'm modifying
the ship
everything by
breaks
saying
apart
in Dungeons
or,
and
or a
Dragons.
fire
You
starts.
know.
And interestingly
You
enough,
know
whenever
that.
your ship hits half of its hit points in combat,
That's why you
must
tuned in,
roll on the
presumably,
critical
'cause
table
we're talking about
regardless if the
Dungeons and
hit was a
Dragons.
crit or not. If the crew gets attacked and dies or becomes unable to function, the ship slows down and the weapon rate of fire increases. You might not be able to fire every round. So attacking the ship or the crew, well, both have their advantages. The Spelljammer campaign setting comes with tables to generate space encounters, and plus rules for towing Spelljammers, repairing, crashing, or ramming into other ships and asteroids. In the next video, I'll talk about planets, creating a universe, and whatever else I find in this setting.
Well,
Thanks so
I
much for
think
watching.
we
Please
had
subscribe
watched
for
these
more
out of
videos
order,
and
and
chat with me in the
we've
comments
already
below.
gone over
If
the
you're
section
interested,
about
check out
planets.
the Patreon, and thanks
Let's
so
seek
much,
out
patrons, for supporting the channel.
This
I'll be back
third
next
video.
week with more
I think
Spelljammer
it's
fun, and
this
until
one that's
then,
called
take
Friends
care
and
and game on.
Foes. So let's go to that one. Oh wow. We're just gonna acapella the Doctor Who theme for this one.
Hello everybody, Jordan here, the PH is silent, and in this video I'll be discussing the Spelljammer D&D campaign setting from the 1990s, going over planets and races that are found in Spelljammer, and specifically the deadly Neogi. If you're new here, this is actually a mini-series,
The deadly
and if you want to
Neogi.
watch from the beginning, click the link in the top right corner.
Looks exactly
or
like a
in the
mosquito, and it's
description
probably
below.
just a
Welcome,
mosquito-shaped
friends, to
mayfly,
the
something
USS
like that.
Spelljammer. We're about to cruise around the known universe and see what we can find. Planets are ports of the ocean that is wild space. There are many types of planets, and for the most part, every spelljamming ship needs to find a suitable planet for oxygen, supplies, and occasionally repairs. For this video, I've pulled information from the Spelljammer box set Adventures in Space and supplements released later called Practical Planetology. Affiliate links to all those down below.
See, that's a good idea for a name.
There are
Practical
the known crystal
Planetology.
spheres in Spelljammer. These are Kryn Space, Gray Space, and Realm Space, which are the solar systems for 3 of the popular campaign settings for D&D at the time: Dragonlance, Greyhawk, and the Forgotten Realms. I've gone over Realm Space in a previous video, which I'll link at the top right and in the description, going over the planets and other weird stuff was in Realm Space. I don't know if you are interested in videos for Kryn Space or Gray Space. I'm more unfamiliar with those campaign settings, but I can always learn, and maybe
So yeah,
their
3
planetoids
completely
would be a
different
fun
solar
place to start
systems,
researching.
3
Let me know in the
completely
comments
different
below. You could
main
hypothetically have a
Earth-style
very
realms.
exciting adventure just in one of
That's
these
how that works.
3 crystal spheres. But if exploration calls to you, then navigating the phlogiston to an unknown crystal sphere might be a path more interesting. Spelljammer
To
has
boldly
several
go
types
where no
of
man
planets,
has gone
and
before.
they have rankings
Now he's
of
got me
size
doing it.
and well, type. You can make your own or mix and match types. This makes planet building simplified so players and DMs know what to expect on a specific type of planet. This doesn't mean you can't switch things up and throw your players for a loop if you want to. Now, Earth bodies are planets that resemble our Earth. They usually have an ocean, plants.
See, I'm just not
Fire
capable of
bodies
messing
would
with
be
my players. I
stars
feel
or
naked
glowing
somehow.
red-hot planetoids. A flaming gaseous atmosphere, and many of these have an opening to the plane of fire somewhere inside them, most likely the center core. Water bodies are planets made up of mostly water. They could be frigid worlds encased in ice or boiling. Some land may
Single
exist,
biome
but to
planets,
separate
just
it
like
from
they
an
have in
Earth
Star
body,
Wars.
Perhaps the islands are floating and move along the surface of the water. Or there's an ancient alien artifact that holds the watery sphere together, which, I mean, you go and you explore that with your ragtag crew and a Delta Flyer. It's all right there. Air bodies are the most common type of planet in the majority of solar systems. They range in size, but are often the largest planets. Some are spheres of gas with no solid material, although they could have some floating masses of earth, water, or even fire. They are usually covered in clouds, and maybe you could stop and have lunch in a city in the clouds, a cloud city, if you will.
Yeah, we
Then
are
there
just
are
liberally
non-standard
lifting that one.
worlds, which encompasses everything else. These worlds could
donuts.
be a giant floating head in space. It could be a flat planet with a mountain, or maybe a giant tree. Maybe in a solar system, there's a Mobius strip planet. How did it come to be? What does it all mean? Adventures in Space, the Spelljammer supplement, gives us a few tools for universe building. And I found them interesting, so let's build a universe. Once heroes move
Wow,
out of the Phlogistian
back in the
Gable,
day when they
discover a
actually
new universe.
included
If
the
this
world
isn't a
building
reclaimed
material
universe,
in
such
the
as realm
books.
space, the DM will need to create it. And there are some questions that will help you define what the players encounter. So what type of system is it? Is it standard or is it special in some case? And what do you find inside this crystal sphere? Is this a single flat world? Like you may walk to the edge of the universe? Is it nested spheres, like one small crystal sphere within the next, forming a series of like ring worlds around a central unseen hub? Each ring may have its own environments and physical attributes. There could be a void without any level ground, without anything in it. There could be
a
one
halo.
spherical world wrapped inside a crystal sphere. The movements of the stars and sun are projected on the inside of the sphere from some interior source. There is always the standard system.
I don't know, Wizards of the Coast did that. That would have been helpful while building my world.
Usually
Yeah.
a star, a planet, a black
Well,
hole.
unfortunately,
And you get
this
to
was
decide what is the number
pre-Wizards of the
main
Coast. This
planets
was
orbiting
probably
this primary
original
body.
TSR
What are
material.
the orbit rings of each body?
So
For each
they
planetary
were
body,
willing
what is the
to
size,
write that
type,
big,
and
long,
shape?
boring
Are there
book, but the
moons? Are there
people who are currently
inhabitants?
holding
Do some
Dungeons
or
and
all
Dragons
civilizations
aren't.
have spelljamming
And that's really
capabilities in
just the
this crystal
unfortunate
sphere?
difference with
What
that.
is the distance to the crystal shell of the system? Usually it's twice the orbit of the furthest major body. Now for inspiration, we can create a randomly generated system using some percentile die. Hey everybody, it's my face, and I thought this would be a little bit easier if we just kind of roll up a random universe. So I've got a dice roller, I've got the Adventures box set PDF right here. And,
this should be
let's
interesting.
dive in. So first of all, we do a system type, and a lot of this is percentile dice. So choosing here, we're gonna roll percentile dice, and it's gonna work. There we go. 92. 1 to 95 is a standard system, so we're gonna have 92 standard.
You only get
system.
weird if you roll
And
above
then
a
we're gonna do
96.
the primary type, what is gonna be the center of this area. So we're gonna get rid of that, and we'll roll again. This is 98. So no primary. The planets orbit an empty spot in the center. So that's kind of cool. 98. No primary, just an empty spot in the center of this.
Yeah, so that wouldn't be a hub
solar system.
world
Number
in the
of
solar
planets.
system. They would
Let's,
just have
roll
an
some
empty
percentile dice
middle.
again. 66.
Well,
So we have
let me
9
pause this for a second because, you know, in an issue with that, what you're basically suggesting is that ordinarily a solar system is understood that, you know, it has to have a central area like a star, which has a high gravity pull, and that's effectively what all of the planets rotate around. So I don't know what else he's going to be able to roll in order to justify for that or reason about that, but go watch freaking One Piece. As laziness that thy name is Wizards of the Coast. Well, unfortunately, I'm inclined to agree.
9 planets orbiting this empty spot.
Okay, 9 planets in a world that has no hub.
We roll percentile again, but a bunch, and we get 68 planets are worlds orbiting around a central point.
68 planets.
68
Okay.
Planets are worlds orbiting around a central
Okay.
point.
So
Planetary
9
motion,
planets and then
remember,
64
we're getting these percentile
realms
dice,
of the planets,
we're getting
probably
these
like moons and
21,
just
all
other
planets
astral
move
areas.
clockwise in orbit. And planetary
All planets move
characteristics.
clockwise.
Roll on the following table for each of the planets involved. We have 9 planets, but I'm going to do 2, just for time's sake. So let's roll 2 percentile dice and see what we get. We have to roll for our type, our size, and then earth and water type. Oh, fire and air types, earth and water types, and then shapes. So it looks like we have to roll maybe 2 or 3 times. Okay, planet type rolling.
Still rolling
We got a
percentiles.
93, which
1
is
percentile for every single
so
planet.
Okay, so
And so, yeah, we've already established that there's 9 planets.
Planet 1 is 93.
So, a black hole at a sufficient distance
So
might
for
work. Don't
water
quote me on the
types,
physics.
we
Yeah.
roll percentile.
I mean, so technically
We
that
get
wouldn't be a
21
star,
as
but
the
technically it means that it used to be a star,
So
and it's
21
now it's just a
size
great big
E.
gravity well.
And what is the shape of this? 71, it is a flat world. Interesting. Planet 2 is going to be...
So yeah, 2 rolls
70
for
is
each
going to
planet.
be an air type. 70 air type. Its size is going to be 19, which is size D again. And then what is the shape of this planet? 40. 40, it is going to be spherical. All right, so we go ahead and make those. And then there's some extra optional stuff like moons, rings, strange atmosphere, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I could say, hey, you know what, this air planet, it's gonna have something weird about it. Let's roll. 69. Nice. The planet is hotter than hell. And there we have
It's
it.
funny
The solar
because he
system
rolled
of
a
Fajor
6
and
number
its
for the
Earth-like
moon.
planet of Fadan, where people speak every word with a silent PH in the middle. The races in Spelljammer are varied, as they are in the player's handbook. Humans are out flying around. There are elven armadas, which are highly organized.
humans out there
Several
just
areas
making
of
a
wild
mess out of
space.
things.
They will assist others for assistance in return.
And high elves
Are
out there
widespread,
to
and while
look down
elves
on
consider
them.
themselves as one giant nation of people,
And
consider
dwarves
their
to
nation
mine
to be
everything until it's
localized to their
hollow.
ship. Citadel Spelljammer ships with kings and queens and subjects who explore wild space. The lizard men are intelligent and vicious. They were supposedly slaves of mind flayers and humans who broke free. There are gnomes, halflings, goblins, all make their home somewhere in Spelljammer. Now, the opposite of this are extraplanar beings who don't enjoy wild space. Creatures like elementals, devils, modrons, or the slod, they dislike being there. They feel very cut off from their native plane. Beholders, lichens,
Funny, humans are the most
as well as
prominent
radiant
race in all
dragons just
worlds
flying
except
around.
mine. They
I
are
would be
facing extinction
neglectful
right
if
now.
I didn't talk about the best
Yeah, that's
race
an
in
that's an
Spelljammer.
interesting hook,
The GIF. Also known
that
as
you would run a
Hippofolk, who are
game where
mercenaries
humans are
from some
rare. Everybody
far-off
has to
crystal
be
sphere. They have
a different
powerful muscles and stocky frames, standing about
race.
8 or 9 feet tall. They love dressing.
And so
in
we're going to go
uniforms
through the
with
overview
elaborate
of
armor.
different
More
kinds
likely,
of
the armor is more show-offable
species
than
in the
protect.
specific
They are
book.
very strong and loyal. And let's be honest, the GIF are. I mean, well, if I had to categorize them, I mean, they're the Mandalorians of Spelljammer. This is the way, and I am not upset about it. GIF are a warrior race who do not enjoy fighting their own kind. Other races are seen as either employment or troublemakers. Maybe you could hire a GIF for your Spelljammer campaign, or if you want to play one, there are old D&D racial stats for the GIF in Dragon Magazine number 339. If you need an enemy for your Spelljammer campaign...
Oh, I can just
plenty to
imagine
choose
how
from.
fun it is
Holders,
going
Illithids,
out and
more all roam
hunting
about wild
down
space. However,
old
there is
Dungeons and
one
Dragons
evil
magazines
creature
from the
that is
70s.
unique to Spelljammer, and that is the Niyogi. The Niyogi are a spider eel type creature with a bloated body, claws, and fur. They're just weird and creepy. They fly
The humans
around
started
in
with equal
Spelljammer
numbers,
ships
but then the
called
dragons
Death
turned all of
Stars, which
them,
you'd assume would be a
except for
drow ship.
one into
They're all
half
slave
dragons.
traders and consider every living thing in the multiverse to either be
Not the
enslaved
ordinary
or
method of
to
conveyance for
have
Dragonborns,
ownership of
but
said
it
enslaved.
works. It
They are
does work for the
ruthless,
lore.
killing and taking what they want. They eat their enemies and even fallen comrades. Very hateful and xenophobic. They speak a unique language that is difficult to learn outside
So
of
we
Hunter
did go over the
Magic, and
Niyogi
most
when we
Niyogi can
read
speak
through the
1 to 4
5e
other languages on top of that.
manual.
They have an affinity for Umber Hulks and breed them, training them from birth to care for and protect other Niyogi. Their bite is poisonous, resulting in the slow condition for a set amount of rounds in combat. The Niyogi are asexual. There are no females or males. When a Niyogi grows too old and their mind fades, other Niyogi will attack them, injecting their poison into the older Niyogi. All these different poisons mix with the Niyogi's blood and transform it into a bloated creature that is 20 feet in height and girth. The intelligence of this creature fades and their legs and arms become useless. The creature is now known as a great old master. It devours flesh, and it is fed live and dead things. After 2 months of non-stop eating, this creature will burst apart.
Yeah, that was
and
precisely what I was
outskill
thinking about.
20 to 40 mature Niyogi. These newly formed Niyogi have no real sense of self other than they are hungry and they must kill. So the Niyogi battle each other to the death. Of the 20 or 40, only 3 to 6 will survive and move on to become Umber Hulk owners and perhaps crew a ship. The Nyogi are something players don't want to encounter. They are very smart, physically powerful, and completely alien to player characters. They don't see dwarves, humans, and elves as someone to barter with. To a Nyogi, your ship, its crew, and you are all up for grabs, to live, serve, and die as a slave to the Nyogi. Little is known of the Nyogi, which can be fun for you as a dungeon master. Their homeworld is referred to as Xaryxis and is supposedly lost. Xaryxis was the place of the Nyogi creator deity. Their creation myth is that the deity, Xaryxis, was killed by lesser Nyogi gods, and he fell to the planet. His head cracked open in the fall, and his brain spilled out. The Nyogi were born from this dead deity's brain matter. The other lesser Nyogi deities spoke to this newly hatched race, saying it was their destiny to conquer all the crystal spheres. So the Nyogi promptly left their home planet and never looked back. Next week, I'll be discussing updated rules for running a Spelljammer game in D&D. I also have an adventure
updated rules, which were probably homebrew rules, but we're past that now because they've actually released a official
Thanks for sharing my videos with your gaming group and
I'm probably going to have to go back to this channel and see if he's actually done any discussion or reviews involving the 5e version of Spelljammer. And then if I find that, I'll bring it to you. We'll do that next week. And so, yeah, let's back out of this. So just go through the process of setting everything on again. Put the music back on, because now we're going to start reading through Light of Xaryxis. So, as I had mentioned at the top of the stream, I don't want to be in a position where I'm potentially giving away any spoilers. So, effectively, I'm only going to read this book on a surface level. I'm only going to talk about the lore. I'm only going to talk about the information that is also known by the player characters. And so, then if anybody is interested in running this game, they won't have too many materials that have already been related to them in advance. But, I'm only human, and I might make a mistake, and in addition to that, maybe, some of the player character material is written really well and does give away something about the actual book. So we're still in spoiler territory. If you guys are interested in looking at this book from a more fresh perspective, then this would be a good time to turn away from the stream. So let's go ahead and let's get started. Wild space awaits. This Dungeons & Dragons adventure begins in a world of your choosing that ventures into wild space and the astral sea. The characters navigate these environments aboard ships that can traverse vast distances by using a magical item. Go watch freaking One Piece is now following. Thank you very much for following. Before running this adventure, read the Astral Adventurer's Guide, which contains information about these settings and how spelljamming works. This information is for the DM's eyes only. Oh, gee whiz. Well, if you're planning to play the adventure with someone else as your DM, stop reading now. Well, we're still going for it, unfortunately. Summary. The story revolves around the characters' efforts to save their homeworld from attack by an empire of astral elves. The attack is underway when the adventure begins. After taking refuge aboard a spelljamming vessel, the characters head for the stars to discover who is responsible for the attack and how they can save their world. O.S. Devon says, "Hey guys, sorry for the huge delay. I'm currently tanking for my Warcraft guild tonight. Just got our first break right now. Cheers, friends." Well, thank you very much for tuning in, O.S. Devon. I know that it can't be easy for you to try to consistently tune in, especially when you're running tabletop in the background. So I appreciate you a lot. Okay, so during the adventure, the characters encounter many space-dwelling creatures, some of which become companions on the party's voyage. The characters also meet Princess Zidali, an astral elf who is embroiled in a power struggle with her twin brother, Prince Aleth, over who will rule the empire that currently threatens the character's world. With or without Zidali's help, the creatures must assemble an unlikely alliance to strike at the heart of the astral empire. The characters encounter many grandiose locations as the adventures unfold, including an astral city known as the Rock of Brawl, which we discussed pretty extensively when we were looking at the Astral Adventures Guide. So I think maybe the people who read this are expecting that you should go to the Astral Adventures guide and use the Rock of Brawl as your alternate setting. That's probably how this is supposed to work. The characters encounter many grandiose locations as the adventure unfolds. Oh, okay, and the Imperial Citadel of the Astral Elves, which orbits a star called Xaryxis. When we were watching YouTube, we were actually highlighting a dwarf citadel, but yeah, it probably doesn't exist here. Only the elf one would. So, Xaryxis. The light of Xaryxis has nourished the Xarxian Empire for millennia, serving as a wellspring for the magical power that the astral elves of Xaryxis space used to sustain their empire. 1,000 years ago, the star's light began to fade, threatening the elves' prosperity. So Emperor Xavian turned the dying star into a parasite that leeches life from worlds using the crystal seeds harvested from the star. Well, that wasn't very nice of him. After the elves select a suitable host world, ships known as Star Maws release hundreds of astral seeds into the planet's atmosphere. The seeds fall from the sky and bury themselves in the ground and the oceans of the world. After the astral seeds take root, they produce enormous crystalline vines. The tendrils of these vines extend deep into the world and draw life energy from it. When the vines have sapped a world of its energy, a process that can take months, they send out a bright beam of light that travels back to Xaryxis, temporarily replenishing a star's radiance and leaving the host world a barren husk. These guys are just out here draining stars. Can't imagine anything that might possibly go wrong with that. Though Xaryxis shines brightly after each replenishment, it wasn't long before the light of Xaryxis began to wane once more, presaging the doom of another world. Once astral seeds have taken root on a host world, there's no easy way to stop the transformation. The vines are too thick and too numerous to be uprooted. Destroying the star Xaryxis, which acts as a lodestone for the astral seeds, is the only way to feed free a world from their grip. If a star goes dark, the crystal vines release their stored energy back into the host world, shrivel and die. Okay, adventure structure. Okay, I'm gonna have to tread carefully in this one. 4 parts, each divided into 3 chapters. Each chapter is designed to be run as a single play experience lasting 2 or 3 hours. That's pretty standard for 5 ebooks. Each chapter begins with an overview. There's no telling how a session will unfold, since some players have some control over the plot, but the text tries to give you enough information to run various characters and encounters. If the characters do something unexpected, improvise as best as you can while gently steering them towards their main goal. Each chapter ends with a cliffhanger to set the stage, and for the next session, assuming things go as planned. Okay, 4 parts of the adventures are as follows, and so these are our summaries. We're going to go through each chapter, so I'm probably not just going to read the short versions of them. Okay, running the adventure. Okay, well, this is, this is information that I'm most likely going to gloss over, but I am going to read the blue bars because blue bars is information that is meant to be read from the book to the player characters. And they talk about how to use the monster manual, how to use the other source books that are included with the Spelljammer set, and so that's effectively what the rest of that paragraph is. Light of Xaryxis is inspired by the 1980 film Flash Gordon and the serialized Flash Gordon comic strips from the 1930s. Flash, he'll save every one of us. The adventurous heroes like Flash Gordon himself must defeat otherworldly foes to save their home planet. Campy supporting characters, implausible situations, and over-the-top dialogue help push the story towards its inevitable conclusion. Absurd plot twists undercut the sense of urgency, keeping the heroes on their toes as they stumble from one cliffhanger to the next. Well, we'll be the judge of that. Okay, so here's what you can do to make Light of Xaryxis feel like the pulpy sci-fi tales that inspired it. You can watch the 1980 Flash Gordon film. It's not Shakespeare or Scorsese. Oh my god. One thing that really concerns me a lot when it comes to consuming nerdy media is the fact that nerdy media just kind of tends to constantly apologize for himself, and it's just written into this book now. Any non-player character who isn't fighting the hero should naturally defer to the heroes, giving the players a sense that their characters matter. End each session with a cliffhanger. It already has one at the end of each chapter, but you can create your own cliffhanger with an unexpected threat, twist, or revelation. When you're ready to begin a new chapter, read or paraphrase a recap that appears at the start of the chapter, embellishing it with pertinent events. Okay, so yeah, that's basically it. So, this adventure assumes that the characters start at 5th level. Oh my god. This really is advanced territory. Honestly, when I ever read adventure books in 5e, they usually do have a level 1 component, so who knows what? Who knows when, where, and why? But, clearly, Light of Xaryxis is probably one of the most advanced books. It's also a good sign it's also a good sign that the prospect of getting more 5e manuals might be beginning to run down, because they're beginning to assume that everybody has characters that are level 5 and above. And so usually the loadout for Dungeons & Dragons characters probably only goes from about level 1 to level 7. Anything above that, and you have really strong, omniscient characters that are capable of taking on absolutely anything that you throw at them. Both the starter kit and the Dungeons & Dragons Essential Kit contain adventures that'll take your characters from 1st level to 5th level. Oh my, well, go back and plug the Adventurers Kit while you're at it. Okay. As spacefaring races are common in your world, you can use backgrounds from the Astral Adventurers Guide. If during the adventure a player wants to create a new character, perhaps because their previous one died or left the party, that player can roll up a new character with the same level as the rest of them. And then that's when you might want to create a character from the Astral Adventurers Guide. To create 5th level adventures, people can use character creation steps outlined in the player's handbook. So maybe that's going to be a topic for a future stream. We're going to talk about, immediately creating a character at level 5, and we'll probably use the tools on D&D Beyond in order to do that. So character advancement. At the end of each of the adventure's parts, everybody in the party receives enough experience points to advance one level so that they are at the level they should be for the next chapter at the end of each adventure's part. So yeah, they're suggesting to give a level 1 at the end of every full chapter, which is a little bit fast-paced, but it certainly does work for something that, you're trying to treat like an old science fiction serial, which is obviously, what they were going for when they wrote this. Alright, so these are chapters. The adventure begins in a coastal city or a port town on a world where the characters are either seeking their fortunes or resting between adventures. Since most of this adventure takes place in wild space and in the astral sea, the initial setting doesn't have much effect on how the adventures will play out. The character's home world serves mainly to set the stakes for the story. It's in danger of being destroyed, so using a world your players are familiar with works best, whether that's a published campaign setting or a world of your own setting. So, you heard that, Dungeon Masters. Go ahead and jeopardize the home world that your planets would already... that your characters would already be on. Okay, so... So if you use the starter set, then you can go ahead and use the region featured in the introductory adventures. All the locations are described in this book, and further details about the Rock of Brawl are provided in the Astral Adventures Guide. Wow. I hope I'm getting my money back for my month's description, because I frickin' called it. You... go watch frickin' One Piece. I frickin' called that you should go back and read the Astral Adventures Guide. Just saying. I'm just saying. Using the Starlight Apparition, a useful device for you if a key non-player character meets an unfortunate expended end. The characters need a piece of information only that a non-player character can know. And so, effectively, the Starlight Apparition is just a way that you can feed hints or meta advice into the game. And so, I'm glad that they have just like a small mechanic for that, because in the event that a whole groups of role players get stuck, then that's something that can be useful. So now we're going into storyline chapters. And like I said, I'm probably going to be glossing over this. There's a very good chance that this actually might even be my shortest reading, because of the sheer amount of material I'm just going to need to skip so that people will actually still be interested in continuing to run this. So, as the adventure begins, the characters are going about their daily business in a bustling coastal settlement, where everyone's talking about the spectacular meteor showers that have blazed through the sky in the past several nights. In fact, what folks have witnessed are showers of astral seeds falling from space and plunging deep into the ground and water in and around the settlement. Some of these seeds have now germinated. The adventure begins when the enormous crystalline vines erupt from beneath the streets, throwing the community into chaos. So this is the text that you actually read to the player characters. Your adventurers have taken you to a coastal community where local fishing boats share the harbor with trade vessels from far and wide. Lately, everyone has been discussing the deluge of falling stars that has lit up in the evening sky for the past several nights. Some say these celestial events are omens of impending disaster. Others believe that they are a precursor to the gods descending from the heavens to walk the land. Nobody knows for sure. You're just finishing your midday meal while listening to a blacksmith tell about being awakened last night by a loud crash. Wow. Well, that's somewhat presumptive about what you think your player characters are going to be doing. In my game, it would be likely that you're at a restaurant, the blacksmith is there, and then there's a little bit of open role play involved. According to the smith, a crystalline vine burst out of the ground and punched a hole through the roof of his neighbor's bakery. It must be divine punishment for all of the bad pies and steep prices, says the blacksmith with a nervous chuckle. Suddenly, the earth shakes violently beneath your feet. You can hear the dull roar of the distant eruption. The smith and several others hurry outside. Joining them, you see a sinuous, crystalline vine erupting from the ground a few blocks away, tall enough to be seen above the rooftops. Screams of panic rise from the same direction. A sailor standing in your midst. Okay, well, that's the other NPC. I think it's time I return to my ship. You're welcome to join me. You'll be wise to flee as well. The ground churns again, more eruptions burst through the streets all around you. From the sight sprout smaller crystalline vines that uproot themselves and begin lurching through the streets, driving panicked citizens before them, while the enormous vine in the distance stretches ever taller. The friendly sailor, Elena Sartell, is described later in the chapter. She flees at once, leaving the characters to decide their main course of action. And so, yeah, so then there's a little bit of spoiler material in regards to potential player character choice, but emerging from a lot of the vines that exploded from the grounds is this monster, which is an astral blight. Armor class is 12, hit points are 26, speed is 10 feet, and so they have a very high strength stat but not much else, so very much a glass cannon melee type. So its special stats are illumination. While it has one hit point, the astral blight sheds a dim light in a 10-foot radius. It doesn't require air or sleep, and then has a multi-attack, which includes a vining attack, two vining attacks that have a +5 to hit, reach 10 feet, and plus 3 radiant damage. So these characters aren't really completely melee characters. They can reach 10 feet. Um, if it's a large or small creature, it can grapple. Until the grapple ends, the target takes 1d6 cold damage, because these things are draining you, and you start to feel cold when you're being drained. Okay, don't want to read any material about the crystalline vines. There's some issue. Well, there's a group of side quests that you can do when it comes to rescuing any innocent bystanders. And so then the characters reach the docks, and we get to this description. The scene at the docks is chaotic. Hundreds of people swarm the piers, trying to push their way onto 3 vessels that haven't yet set sail. 2 longships and a galleon. A group of thugs in black leather armor use their clubs in a crowd of screaming commoners, keeping the people away from the ships as they're loaded with cargo under the supervision of a sneering man with long red hair. A woman steps out of the crowd and wipes blood from her chin. "Glad to see you again," she says with a smile. "I'm Captain Elena Sartell, and one of those ships is mine. Pity I can't reach it. Would you be good enough to help me? I promise to return the favor." Alright. Captain Elena Sartell, a chaotic good bandit captain, commands the galleon Moondancer. She is unflappable, an island of calm in the sea of chaos. Practically the stand-in for the Doctor in a Doctor Who episode. You know, just somebody who's a little bit more savvy than what the locals see is going on. Okay. Captain Sartell identifies a red-haired man as a local crime lord named Trevius, a neutral evil veteran. The 10 thugs blocking her path work for him. They're identified by the party, but turn hostile if the characters try to force their way onto the moon's dancer. So yeah, anything else would probably be too much of a giveaway of the rest of the campaign. Alright. So there's some possible outcomes here that I won't go over. So at this point, the ship takes off, and this is the description for it. The crystalline vine coils upward, scraping the sky. From the harbor, you see similar vines from the settlement, having burst out of the world and reaching skyward. As the Moondancer clears the harbor, Captain Sartell stamps her boot hard on the deck. "Flapjack," she yells, "take us up." Suddenly the galleon lifts and creaks as it creases out of the water and into the air. The world falls away beneath as the Moondancer flies through the clouds and into the starry abyss of night. And so, emergency airlift is an alternate takeoff. It states that a great shadow follows over you. You see a mighty galleon floating in midair. Its sails ruffling in the breeze. A rope ladder tumbles down from the ship's side to hang mere feet above the ground, and a face appears over the side of the railing. "Need a lift?" asks the sailor to meet earlier. So that's just 2 different ways that you're going to be introduced to this module's main character, the captain of the Spelljammer. And that is the end of Chapter 1. Let's see. Driven from a coastal settlement by gigantic crystalline vines, astral blights, and earthquakes, the characters secured passage aboard the Moondancer, a galleon under the command of Captain Elena Sartell. A ship then rocketed into space. So I'm hoping the NPC description is going to be here, because it's probably going to be a lot more important for Chapter 2 than it is for Chapter 1. Okay. As the Moondancer leaves the planet atmosphere and enters wild space, Captain Sartell sets a course for the Rock of Brawl. And so that's probably all I'm going to be able to read out of that paragraph. As the Moondancer leaves the character's world behind, read: standing on the deck of the Moondancer, you see scores of crystalline vines erupting from the surface of your world, some of the vines reaching high enough to break through the clouds. You find yourself sailing through a void filled with colorful gases and blinking stars. A school of space-dwelling fish swims past the ship on the starboard side. "Welcome to wild space," says Captain Sartell, sweeping her arms wide. "That was a close thing down there. Blast if I know what those vines are or how to get rid of them, but somebody might on the Rock of Brawl." Okay. So here's the NPC description. Let me see. Captain Sartell operates out of the Rock of Brawl as a privateer under the commission of the city's ruler, Prince Andrew. She assures the characters they'll be safe there. Once their ship docks at the Rock of Brawl, Captain Sartell plans to offload the characters and the ship's other passengers. This act marks the extent of her willingness to help the characters. Okay, she's willing to rescue the characters, take them to the Rock of Brawl, but afterwards she's not interested in continuing. And the one crew member aboard the aboard the Moon Dancer was a flump named Flapjack, who serves as the ship's spelljammer. Flapjack has the following additional action option: can cast Mage Hand and well, let me see. It can cast at will Minor Illusion and Mage Hand, which are both cantrips. And then each day, Magic Missile or Unseen Servant. Okay, and so this is the chart of the Moon Dancer. This is the first Starjammer that you set foot on. And so, probably not more than, just main deck, forecastle, and a stern castle. It's not a very large ship. Quite literally in the shape of a galleon. Oh, no, actually, no, there's two more decks. There's a steerage and a cargo deck. Okay. So the rest of this is probably spoiler material. Okay, so then we'll move on to the next section. It's called When Elves Attack. The ship slows as another vessel comes into view, approaching the Moon Dancer from astern. The pursuing vessel looks like a giant moth with wings made of iridescent crystal, similar in color and luster to the crystalline vines that ravage your world. You can just make out figures on the other vessel's deck, scrambling to arm the ship's mangonel. Astral elves, curses Captain Sartell, and they don't look ready. Best ready yourselves for a fight. So this is a mid-space encounter, and we already did discuss a lot about mid-space encounters when we were watching the videos at the top of the stream. Alright, and so that's their ship, an astral moth ship called the Dark Star. And that's probably all I'm going to be able to divulge. That's all materials about the Dark Star. And then, just a little bit of the materials that will happen shortly after you defeat the ship. Or do literally anything else to avoid the ship. When the characters are hours away from arriving at the Rock of Brawl, read, the ship slows unexpectedly around you and on all sides. Colossal chunks of rock float in the void. Some of them are overgrown with vegetation, while others are bare stone. Creatures resembling jellyfish and rays glide through the spaces between them. Captain Sartell looks about uneasily. There are plenty of places for pirates to hide. As if on cue, a vessel lurking behind a nearby asteroid comes into view. Its enormous spiral shell merges with an open bow, beneath which long tentacles wave as if caught in an invisible current. Sartell sucks in her breath and whispers her next words. Mind flares. Okay, so this is the Mind Flare ship. And so, after the characters sight the craft, it reads, as the Nautilus-shaped vessel drifts close, Captain Sartell lets out a sigh of relief. It's a derelict, she says, pointing out its stripped weaponry and broken hull. If there were mind flayers aboard, they would have attacked us by now. Looks like somebody's already picked it over. Still, there might be something worth salvaging, so then, this would prompt players whether or not they would be interested in exploring the deck. And so there's a map in the Nautiloid. And so, effectively, this would be a dungeon, but this would just be a dungeon mid-space. So anything that is numbered, I'm probably not going to be able to read, simply because it just kind of gives away specific areas of the dungeon that, it's information that is capable of being read to the player characters, but it's still spoiler information. Okay, Part 2. I think this is Chapter 2, Part 2. Terrors of the Void. En route to the Rock of Brawl, the characters discovered a derelict nautiloid drifting in an asteroid field. Only too late did they realize that another, more dangerous ship was lurking nearby, waiting to spring its trap. So, let's see. A night spider crewed by Nyogi has made his presence known, but the characters aren't forced to deal with any new problems. So, new ship aboard, but, nothing that is actually going to be encountered at the moment. So there's material about about that ship, but we're not supposed to know about it quite yet. So I'm debating this one. Should I actually read this? The I'll give this much away. The Nyogi ship bearing down on the Moondancer at the end of Chapter 3 is a Night Spider class ship called the Ebon Snare. And then you can see that in Chapter 2 of the Astral Adventurer's Guide. It's crewed by 8 Nyogi pirates, 20 commoners of various races, of which the Nyogi have enslaved. They also keep 2 Umber Hulks on board for use as shock troops. And so, we went over the Nyogi. They are a nasty race that want nothing but to assimilate. And that is all I have to say about that. Okay. Suddenly, 2 galleons glide into view and begin pummeling the Night Spider with ballista bolts and mangonel stones, forcing it to break off its attack and make for the cover of the asteroids. Newly arrived space galleons are stalwart and incorrigible, both under the command of a lawful neutral Githyanki buccaneer. Githyanki comes from Blue's Astral Menagerie. Alright. And so that is the end of that encounter. Shortly then afterwards, the player characters will land in a rock. Sunlight illuminates the rooftops and spires of a city built across the top of a gigantic asteroid. The asteroid's underside has structures as well, including fortresses and giant sails. Wooden docks protrude from one end of the asteroid, and a variety of ships are moored there. Space-dwelling fish scatter in front of you as the ship adjusts the headings until the docks are straight ahead and level with the ship's main deck. Pier workers stand ready to catch ropes and tie off the ship as it glides alongside one of the docks and slows to a stop. "Welcome to the rocks," says Captain Sartell. "This is where we part ways." If she hasn't done so already, Captain... Oh, well, I shouldn't read that one, because she's talking immediately about the next NPC, which we're going to be reading about. Actually, I should read this much. If she hasn't done so already, Captain Sartell urges the characters to see Commodore Cruff, a Griff who has clashed with Astral Elves in the past, and who might be able to help their characters plan their next move. Okay, Sartell knows that Crufts can be usually found at the Happy Boulder, which is a popular tavern. And this is Commodore Crux. He is a large spherical creature with eye stalks and a watchful center eye. A large spherical creature with eye stalks and a watchful central eye tends bar in this establishment. So that's a description of the bartender. Falling on one side of the table, meant for 6, is a broad-chested, hippo-headed man with a green parrot perched on one shoulder. The haggard figure squints you over the top of an enormous tankard, then waves invitingly to the seats from across him. Crux is a lawful good shipmate, a soldier who believes his glory days are behind him. Crux has spent his last few years working as a mercenary on and around the Rock of Brawl, but lately the Giff has been spending more time in his cups as new jobs have become further and further between. The parrot perched on Crux's shoulder isn't his. It belongs to Large Luigi, the tavern's bar beholder proprietor. And so, Large Luigi was a character that I think we glassed over in the Astral Adventurer's Guide, and is effectively probably one of the most charismatic and friendly beholders that probably exists in the entirety of the multiverse. Alright, so probably going to have to skip this information, because this is the information that the player characters would learn by asking. So next, um, so, um, so this is something that you could potentially overhear while you're in the bar. Um, a fleet of astral ships visited the Rock of Brawl a few days before launching the attack on your world. The elves gave fair warning to various champions on the rock, urging them to steer clear of your world lest their ships be fired upon. The elves undoubtedly left spies behind to make sure their warnings were heeded. Best we continue this aboard my ship. Crux hurriedly ushers the party towards the docks in hopes of making a quick getaway. So there was an encounter before then, but mercifully, I didn't accidentally start reading it. As the characters make their way to the Rock of Brawl's docks with Crux at their side, read stately galleons, sleek cutters that resemble flying fish, and warships built to look like hammerhead sharks line the docks of Brawl. Nux waves his arm towards a craft that seems modest by comparison. The ship's sails are patchworks of mended canvases, while its hull seems barely held together by thick vines that bind it like rope. Its strangest feature is a full-grown tree that sprouts from the aft deck. The second wind, isn't she something? And so we also discussed living ships when we went through the Astral Adventurer's Guide, and that's specifically what that is that it's a ship that has a large living tree embedded into the hull, and that tree is actually part of what gives it its magic ability, its ability to possess a helm and travel through wild space. Of course, a big favorite of nature-based spellcasters like druids. The ship's spelljamming helm, located below decks, looks like an antique chair with golden upholstery and arms sculpted to look like smiling dolphins. The right arm is loose and falls off easily, and the chair reeks of stale ale. The chair is held aloft and stabilized by green crystals under the seat that project a magical green circle onto the floor. Okay, so Jolly Boat. So this is a description of something that you can potentially add to a spelljamming ship. A spelljamming ship can be outfitted with one or more jelly boats, which use the rowboat statistics in the Dungeon Master's Guide in space. Jolly boats are used to cross the gulf between two ships whose gravity planes and air envelopes intersect, on occasions when bringing the bigger ships alongside each other would be risky, or to travel to form a pier that is either too small or too crowded to accommodate a larger vessel. A jolly boat can be lowered into the gravity plane of a larger ship or object, where it bobs like a boat in water. A jolly boat is too small to support a spelljamming helm, so the crew must use oars to steer and propel it as it floats in the gravity plane. A jolly boat without a gravity plane to float in becomes uncontrollable. Through its own envelope, it has enough air to sustain one crew member for 8 hours, or 2 crew members for 2 hours each. Okay, so Feladra, a capable spelljammer who under different circumstances could make a comfortable living selling her services to other captains. As it happens, though, this tiefling has turned to smuggling to make enough coin to buy her way out of an infernal contract she entered to many years ago. And so that's probably the extent that I can read that description. The first mate of the second wind is a neutral good Hadozi explorer. We went over Hadozis in Boo's Astral Menagerie, and they were recently part of a controversy where Wizards of the Coast shortened their description due to some concerns about parallels to colonial era slavery. The Hadozi, the Hadozi is also a skilled seamster who repairs the ship's sails or his work. Upon meeting the characters, he offers unsolicited guidance on how to improve their wardrobes. And then the final crew member is Starbro, The tree root. Oh, actually, this is the description of the tree ant. The tree rooted to the second wind's stern castle is a tree ant named Starbottle, who is indifferent to the aims of either Crux or the party. Like many of his kind, he considers most humanoids' problems to be fleeting affairs, and takes a much longer view of life. Alright. So, to the edge of wild space. Actually, no, I probably should skip that one. Okay, so this is the next story beat. Closing in from behind is a gigantic bioluminescent jellyfish-like creature with a flamboyantly dressed figure standing inside its glassy dome. And this is Hastane. A magical doorway appears on the main deck of your ship. The flamboyantly dressed figure steps through it brandishing a trident, and the doorway closes behind them. Sparkling light surrounds the figure. Heading to Tupla's tower, are we? I don't think so. My friends in the Xaryxian Empire don't want you meddling in their affairs. But forgive me. I haven't introduced myself. My name is Hastane. When the elves came looking for a suitable world for Nourish, their giant star, I suggested yours. It isn't every day I get to witness the destruction of a planet. I promise it will end beautifully, even if you're not allowed to see it. Alright, so... So apparently you would fight and defeat Hastane. He might... So, depending on specifically what might happen, he might stay and fight. He might get killed. And then afterwards... oh, actually, that's a big spoiler. I'm not going to read that. Okay. Okay, so here's Chapter 5. The Xaryxian Empire attacked the characters' world, forcing them to take refuge on the Rock of Brawl. The Xaryxian Empire, probably the Empire of Elves that this Hastane came from. Okay. There they met a sympathetic gift named Nux aboard his ship, the Second Wind. The characters headed to a wizard tower on the outskirts of Wild Space, where Crux hopes to acquire a map. En route to the tower, the Second Wind was attacked by Hastane, an evil ally of the Xaryxian Empire. Alright. So, afterwards, the crew will end up adrift. Nux takes a drag from his pipe. Settle in, everybody. We will be here for a while. Okay, so you're adrift in space. The opportunity comes in order to search a tower. A crooked tower perches atop a small asteroid surrounded by a cloud of twinkling cosmic dust. Through his spyglass, Nux examines the rock upon which the tower stands, and the decrepit wooden pier that juts from one side of it. Mr. Flinch, he said, ready the jolly. So, a significant amount of this is probably going to be is actually going to be a dungeon, and so I'm probably going to skip the most of it. I think I can read this next description, though. Scores of pelicans, mollymocks, and smaller birds nesting on the asteroid squeak as you approach the rickety dock. At the end of the dock, two gray shark-like creatures fight over the remains of a pelican. A woman with frayed robes and bare feet sits in a rocking chair at the base of the tower watching the fracas, her face half hidden by a wide-brimmed hat that has a blue jay perched on it. The woman leaps to her feet, brandishes a staff, and says, "Go on, get," and a fiery ray springs from her fingertip, frightening away the shark-like creatures. Okay, the woman is Tupla, chaotic god mage. She is elated to receive visitors, especially since one of them is Nux. Okay, so right about here, this is where I should stop reading, because this is pretty much the description of the rest of the tower. Let's see. So, after the encounter with Okay, so after the encounter with Tupla, they return to the ship, and then they are attacked while on the ship. As the Jolly Boat approaches the second wind, an enormous jet black behemoth glides out of the darkness in cosmic dust, its red eye glowing as brightly as its jaws open wide. Long, stringy strands of saliva break off into weightless globs as the ravenous monster descends from above. Okay, so skipping the rest of the encounter. A little bit more about that. So, at this point, either they're capable of fixing the ship or acquiring another ship, and they have the option of going immediately for Doom Space. That takes them towards the wreckage of a recent battle. Dead ahead, you see a cloud of debris that appears to be the drifting wreckage of several ships. Crux shouts, "Two arms!" Peering through spy glasses, he adds. Looks like there's 3 flying fishes, 3 lampreys, 2 squid ships, and 2 star moths. So, a whole fleet of wild space vehicles. Alright. I'm not going to discuss anything about the descriptions of the vehicles. Just a tiny ball of light appears over the bottom of the ship, quickly flies around the mast and settles a few feet above the main deck. Changing colors as it hovers in place, in a soft voice it says, "Lost are we? Maybe I can be of assistance." So we have a friendly NPC at this point. It's referred to as a will-o-wisp. So you are led out of that area from the will-o-wisp, and then we reach the next encounter, where you're caught in a cosmic storm. Lightning flashes through dense blue and purple clouds, illuminating the silhouette of a galleon with torn, flapping sails. Ghastly Marines stand on deck and cling to the rigging, staring at you with unblinking eyes. The galleon's captain steps into view, a pallid, white-haired man with a barred metal mask covering the lower half of his face. His left hand detaches at the wrist, scatters up his arm to his shoulder, and waves at you with its fingers. Nux sneers at the sight and keeps one hand on his holstered pistol. "Vampirates," he hissed. So, vampirates are kind of a tertiary group of undead that exist in Boo's Astral Menagerie. And so, other than the fact that they're undead, it's also the fact that, a great amount of them are engaged in piracy. Let's see. In this chat, okay, well, there's a little bit of that's a little bit of a summary, but that might give up some spoilers, so. They are now aboard. Well, we've been. Excuse me, I got it. Okay, sorry about that. So, between this and the remainder of this story, we have been on roughly about between 3 and 6 ships, and this is a 6th ship, which is called a Last Breath, space galleon that is partially damaged, reduced to 90 hit points. Unless the player character's attack it significantly, it's going to attempt to board, and then its captain, the NPC called Grimzod Garganhael, will be heard. He's a chaotic neutral vampiric captain who strikes a dramatic pose as he addresses Nux and the characters. The undead captain places his boot on a rail along the deck of his creaky galleon and leans over the bow. His disembodied hand perches on his shoulder, and lightning from the cosmic storm flashes behind him. Garganhael's tone of voice is inviting, but his dead black eyes glint with malice. It's dangerous out there. The menace from Xaryxis, Commander Vale, keeps sending ships to our system, but we do our part to thin the Astral Elves' ranks. You're obviously not with him. So, they've been having problems with the Dark Elves as well. Do my lifeless eyes deceive me? Tupla, my darling, what a surprise. If you've come to drive a stake through my heart, you'll have to return it first. And so there's a bit of a love affair between Garganhale and Dupla. So, depending on whether those two NPCs are with each other, they're going to bandy about like that. Okay, so skip that material. And then we have a description of the pirate code. Gizmod Garganhale expects those under his command to obey the following rules. Don't eat each other. No hymns. The coward's consequence. Those who abandon their posts shall be removed or shall be marooned. And finally, no shipboard conflicts. All disputes should be settled on land. So, pretty standard pirate code. So the crew of the Last Breath, just a few more NPC descriptions, and then a mutiny. The Last Breath turns tail and flees, leaving its captain behind. Garganhale's dark eyes widen and narrow. What's this foul treachery? So, following his own code, his shipmates leave him abandoned on the land. As Garganhale bellows a curse on the dwindling stern of his ship, Flinch approaches the vampire captain with glazed eyes and a dreamy smile, in a voice dripping with sarcasm. Flinch says, Captain Garganhale, your command of the Last Breath is at an end. We've had enough quote-unquote victory at your hands to last 10 lifetimes. The Hadozi then shudders as a horn ghost vacates his body, cackles, and disappears. Flinch blinks his eyes back into focus, and then says in a normal voice, do I smell smoke? Shame it's not, we're not going to know what the fire was. So characters aboard the second wing can use the ship to pursue the Last Breath, which disappears in the cosmic storm. As soon as he can, Garganhale gives the second wind an edge in the hunt. The vampire captain drops to his knees and traces a pattern on the deck with his right hand. A shimmering wave of magical energy washes over the ship. Garganhale then cackles in triumph. We are invisible. They won't see us coming until it's too bloody late. So, my ship is badly damaged. So after reclaiming the ship, I believe. Yeah. Well, firing on it. If you make the choice to fire on the Last Breath. My ship is badly damaged and brimming with alchemist fire. One well-aimed shot could cause her to explode. Better to slip aboard instead and dispatch the mutineers in close combat. Okay, so this is the Space Galleons map, which, more than tells me that, this is actually going to count as one of the dungeons. If the prisoner has already been roused to consciousness using magic, she awakens with 1 hit point. So you are capable of boarding the ship, engaging in the dungeon, and then rescuing somebody. And then once the captive is awake and somewhere safe, then you read that the elf god's gold pupils twinkle as he speaks in a superior tone. I am Princess Zidali, daughter of Emperor Zavan, and heir to the throne of Xaryxis. And so this is the end of Chapter 2, I believe. So I think I'm going to read through Chapter 3, and then I think I'm going to call it a stream. I thought I was going to get through this quicker just because I was skipping a lot of material, but apparently not. I will get to Light of Xaryxis Part 2 next week when I do another one of these tabletop lore streams. Alright, so let's see. So we've just met Princess Zidali. Zidali, a chaotic, neutral, astro-elf aristocrat, wears a ring of shooting stars and is initially friendly towards the characters. She shares the following information with the characters as she leads about the attack on her world. We both want the same thing, revenge. As my father lies on his deathbed, my scheming brother Zeleth denies me my birthright. He seized control of my father's navy, banished me from the court, and left me in the clutches of his sycophants. He orchestrated the attack on your world by bombarding it with astral seeds harvested from Xaryxis, our dying star. Once the crystal vines had drained all the energy from your world, they will dispatch that energy in a beaming light back to Xaryxis, replenishing it. Zeleth instructed his minions to deposit me on your world so that as I died, my energy would contribute to a small way to the light of Xaryxis. Unfortunately for me, my ship was disabled and boarded by vampirates. Help me become Empress, and I will undo the damage Zeleth has already caused your world. Okay. So, a little bit of spoiler material when it comes to that. Commodore Crux does seem to start having a crisis of conscience. And then we leave wild space and we enter the astral sea. The colors of wild space grow more muted, fading into a deepening silver haze. Soon your ship is immersed in the starry silver clouds of the astral sea. So, these are two differing locations in Spelljammer. Wild space tends to describe areas that, just have stars and blackness, the way that you would imagine space as you've seen it from like a dozen NASA photos. While the astral sea is an extension of an astral magic that exists out into outer space, it is where realms of gods and demigods and other people exist, and it is also the realm where the elves have the light of Xaryxis. And so, an advantage of traveling in the astral sea is that you need to only think of your destination. So the ship's Spelljammer needs to think about the destination, Doom Space, to travel there. It takes care of the rest with the ship arriving at the edge of Doom Space in 21 days. Okay, a little bit more of an open roleplay here, and discussing things and encountering with the crew, and then we arrive in Doom Space. The haze thins as the ship enters a system that appears to have no sun. The ship glides between colossal fragments of smoky gray crystal, remnants of an outer shell of fantastic proportions. As silent as lifeless as a graveyard, Doom Space gives new meaning to the phrase dead of night. After 3 days of travel through the labyrinth of crystal shards, you catch sight of a yawning black vortex dimmed in light. And so then an alternate description of that if you are using the Wild Space Orrery. We travel an additional 10 days and find ourselves at the Artux of Arun. Flashes of light on the surface of Arun can be seen from orbit. As the ship descends towards the moon, you see a wasteland dotted with pillars of rock. Arcs of lightning leap from pillar to pillar. The ship heads towards a plateau that is 100 feet tall, a mile wide, and covered with jungle foliage. Knowing the ship can't land safely, the Crux gives the order for the ship to hover just above the treetops, then shouts, "Mr. Flinch, drop the ladder!" On command, the Hadozi releases the end of a rope ladder that extends 50 feet to the ground. The jungle below is alive with the sounds of wildlife. Who shall join me on the away team? So, here we're going to go into a jungle encounter. There is an encounter with two bullets. So those of you who know what bullets are, they're effectively land sharks. They are just large shark-like creatures that actually walk on four limbs and dig into the ground. And so they effectively operate as sharks, but on land. Okay, part 3 of the adventure takes place in a wild space system called Doom Space, which consists of 2 worlds and 12 moons, spiraling towards a vortex that used to be the system's sun. Thousands of years ago, war between gods and primordials ended, with all gods being banished from Doom Space. After the war, the primordials encased the system in a crystal spear that kept the gods at bay. After being kept out for eons, the gods finally found a way to shatter the crystal sphere, but no one knows exactly how. The destruction of the sphere filled the outermost region of Doomspace with crystalline shards as big as asteroids. What happened next isn't known for fact, but speculation abounds. Some say the gods appeared before the leaders of Phyrene and Malice and demanded to be worshipped. When they were rebuked, the gods vented their fury by collapsing the sun, leaving behind a spiraling vortex called the Eye of Doom. Those who deny the existence of the gods refute these claims and turn to ancient myths for explanation. Perhaps the angry sun was slain by a primordial foe taking the form of a comet, or perhaps the sun was the shell of a great dragon's egg that finally hatched, and the so-called Eye of Doom is the hatchling's hungry maw. Alright, so gonna gloss over all locations, all areas of sections. Yeah, all of these sections right here, because that's just going to be open exploration that characters might choose to engage in. Chapter 8, The Arena of Blood. Eager to join a coalition against the Xaryxian Empire, the characters arrived in Zoom space to find the system on the verge of collapse. Commodore Crux led his crew to Arun with the goal of finding an old comrade named Warwick Blastomov, who was tasked with organizing a coalition in advance or taking the fight to the enemy. Okay. My efforts to create a coalition have been... Oh, so I think this is Warwick. Okay. My efforts to create a coalition have been unsuccessful. The factions of Doomspace have little interest in battling the Xaryxian Empire, which seems only a distant threat to them. They would rather fight amongst themselves. You saw for yourselves how prickly the Artuks were. My peaceful entreaty must have offended their war gods. The only thing these factions seem to have in common is their hunger for ships, spell-jamming helms, and weapons. Things I can't provide. War is everyone's native tongue here, and the ones most fluent on it are the Mercanes. The Blue Giants are making a killing by selling ships, helms, and weapons to the other faction in exchange for raw material resources. But all is not lost. We've learned that the factions are in debt to a Mercane named Vokath. He might be willing to help us, but for a price. So, once again, when we look through Boo's Astral Menagerie, we pinpointed the Mercanes as a blue-skinned alien race that is almost solely interested on being merchants and being merchants to people who live in outer space. They're kind of like the Ferengi from Star Trek. So yeah, they are making a killing off in this area of space where everybody's fighting with each other, and they're the ones providing all the weapons. Alright, so skip their descriptions, and then say when you are successful at this, then you reach Volkath's base. I think Volkath, was the Mercane that is in charge of this operation. Floating above the luminous green clouds of Volkath is a structure made of gray and black stone, with large crystal formations jutting from the underside. Docks radiate outward from a building that is capped by a crystal dome. Several ships are moored here, including a galleon and 4 others that are shaped like a wasp, a scorpion, a lamprey, and a bird, respectively. Attached to this main building is a tower that has its own private dock near the top. At the end of this dock is a ship shaped like a damselfly, its metal hull painted bright blue. Flanking this dock are 2 identical 40-foot-tall statues, each one depicting a thin, blue, well-dressed giant. And so there are lots of different races that are appearing as a crew. So this is what Volkath looks like. So this is the Mercane that is doing all the war profiteering. Okay, so 6 different ships on 6 different docks. Let's see. And guards. And so eventually, going through the lot of this, they go up to the throne room of Volkath, and they find out that he isn't there, and this sparks another dungeon crawl, and effectively through the entirety of Volkath's base. So I'm going to just have to move past all of that. Finally, when you meet him, um, well, say so. When you meet him, he's surrounded by his guards, as the characters must first interact with one or more of his guards, who use their sigil tattoos to contact the Mercade and inform him of their character's arrival. Interested to hear what the characters have to say, Volcath instructs the guards to bring them to the audience table, where Volcath greets them. Volcath, a slender blue giant wearing elegant robes, sits on a large throne flanked by two bodyguards, a battle-scarred Gif, and a Githyanki with an eye patch. Both are clad in plate armor. "I can't say that you look particularly important," drawls the Mercane. "So speak, don't waste my time." And so, Volcath is a cold, smug, and oozing with pride. He knows that all the factions in Doomspace compete to please him. He is as dismissive of emotional pleas for the alliance of the Doomspace factions as he is of anything that doesn't turn him a profit. If you plead for his help, he says, "enough with me. I'll arrange a private meeting for you with the faction leaders if you can survive 3 battles in my arena with no rest between them. Representatives of the factions will be watching, so fight well. An excellent performance might win their favor." Okay. So then we get into arenas, and so, yeah, I'm pretty much going to, move past all the arena battles. Let's see. So here we meet we meet Prince Zelith. That's basically what it is. To build a coalition against the Xaryxis Empire, the characters came to terms with them. Well, actually, I should probably stop right about here. Okay. This is the beginning of chapter 9, which is slightly different from the act. But so where we left off is that all of the player characters have engaged themselves into the arena. And once they're capable of defeating the arena's greatest monster, then they're able to get the favor of the Mercade. And so we're going to just go ahead and close things off here. So, thank you everybody. Thank you everybody for tuning in to another episode of Brady the RPG Cat. I'm glad that I was able to bring you some of the information that is in Light of Xaryxis, the Spelljammer quest book. And so, thank you to OS Devon. Thank you to Go Watch Freaking One Piece for following. Thank you to Sonar AF. And thank you to I said OS Devon. Okay, so thank you everybody for tuning in. You guys are fantastic. And as I'm glad that you guys have regularly been showing up to my streams, and you guys have been very engaging in chat. It is something that is very helpful to me as I continue to work towards making my affiliate. So thank you everybody thank you. I'm just gonna say thank you a lot. As always, this stream is brought to you by greatmedia.games. For inexpensive TCG single cards, visit greatmedia.games and use the code 10Infinity at checkout for 10% off of your online order. So if you're willing to stay for me for just a minute more, we're going to head off to Twitch and we are going to do us a raid. So let's see. Who would we like to raid right now? I think... See, they might be interesting. Let's see. Well, let's see. That's could be good. Okay, so I think I'm going to go over to Stella Cosmister. Right now, they are in the middle of actually playing a Dungeons & Dragons campaign. Probably going to come in the midst of the campaign. But at any rate, let's start out with a shout out. Alright. Currently playing Dungeons & Dragons. Oh boy, Nintendo and its love of wooden block mazes. Wooden block marble mazes. So many Nintendo games have wooden block marble mazes. I don't blame her for being frustrated. Stop playing tilt and roll? Sounds like a good idea.
No! That wasn't the tilt! Stop it! Oh, God. Are you fucking kidding me? Where are the physics?
Physics. Where we go, there are no physics. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and head over to her channel. Hopefully she's having a much better time playing Tabletop. But at any rate, thank you everybody for tuning in. I am going to be back tomorrow, and we are going to be playing Freedom Planet, which is a Sonic-esque platformer with a very deep and engaging anthropomorphic animal storyline. And so that's going to be very fun. But anyways, thank you everybody for tuning in. Have a good night, everybody, and thank you for watching.